Welcome to video 2B of our plant pathology course. And in this video, we're going to take a look at two more final fungal disease problems that are common to Colorado. Cytospora canker occurs on a number of different plants, and I've listed some examples for you at the top of your screen. The picture of the cottonwood on the left shows you the general symptoms. And the symptoms that you see sure look like they could be from something else, like drought, for example. But when you get closer into the plant, you'll find a dead or often sunken or discolored area on trunks and branches, like you see on the right-hand picture. As the Cytospora fungus infects the plant, it kills the conductive tissue, cutting off water and nutrient movement to the tissue underneath and then beyond the canker. Symptoms include the slow branch death that is represented by the picture on the left. If you follow the dead branch back from the tip toward the center of the tree, you should be able to find the canker that killed it. In the right-hand picture, you can see a canker, and it contains those pimple-like structures protruding through the dead bark. Those are the reproductive or fruiting structures of the organism. When you have a moist spring, you will find that the fruiting structures open and produce these colorful spore tendrils. And then the spore tendrils look a lot like a grape-type tendril. They're a lot smaller, and they're kind of the consistency and color of orange jello. The spores are released from these tendrils, and then they're spread by splashing water or wind. And the spores can go to infect other parts of the same tree or go to infect other plants. An important thing to remember about Cytospora is that it's a weak pathogen, and it only successfully colonizes stressed plants. So what that means is if you correctly identify Cytospora on a plant, you know immediately that that plant is stressed from something. The stress can be from age, poor soil preparation, poor planting, poor cultural practices, and so on. The best way to manage the disease is twofold. First, to prune off the affected tissue so that you remove the potential inoculum. And then the other thing is to try to increase plant vigor. And that may mean simply the plant needs more water or less water or something like that. It's often very difficult to correct a problem that's gotten so far out of hand to get to this point. There is a CSU Extension fact sheet on Cytospora canker, and I've put that up there in the corner for you to check out at a later time. The last fungal disease we'll look at are the root rots, and just about any plant is susceptible to them. The primary causes of root rots are overwatering and poor soil drainage. When you have these conditions, you have poor soil oxygen content, or what we call oxygen starvation. And oxygen starvation stresses or kills roots. The organisms that cause root rots grow best in higher moisture soils, so that wet soil environment combined with stressed roots creates that perfect storm for infection. A plant infected with root rot organisms may wilt. That's often the first symptom. The geraniums in this picture were growing in the same 4-pack, but you can see that the one on the left has healthy white roots in the soil wall, and the stems and leaves are turgid, and in addition, it's even flowering. If you look at the one on the right, you don't find the roots in the root ball. The plant is wilting, there's no flowers present. And this wilting is not from the soil being too dry. That's a big mistake gardeners make. You see a wilting plant, you apply water, and the plant continues to wilt. So wilting can represent both under and over watering. Another common symptom with root rots is that those oldest lower leaves turn yellow, then they turn brown and drop off, and that's exactly what's going on in these two pictures, in the flat of geraniums on the left and in the cucumber on the right. Here's how a root rot might look in a larger planting. On the left picture, you can see that some of the petunias appear to be necrotic or dead. And in the right-hand picture, I've circled that area. So it's very obvious to someone that's worked with diseases for a while that there is a root rot of some type going on here. And another thing I want you to notice about these two pictures is that it's not the whole planting that's affected. Okay, it's an area of the planting. So boy, that root rot's really going in that area where the yellow circle exists. These mushy, limp, dark-colored roots are another symptom of root rot. So you can knock a sick-looking plant out of its pot or dig up part of a plant in the garden to take a look at the roots. And you might find something like what you're seeing in these pictures. The final symptom of root rot is the protective covering of the root core, or the cortex, comes off. And if you have that happen, you definitely know that there is a root rot that is active. The cortex might break off as you're actually taking the plant out of the pot, but you can also just gently tug on that root, and if it's infected, the core will come off in your hand and leave behind those slender, hair-like root cores like you see the green arrows pointing to. And I've also included a schematic on the left side of the screen so that you can see exactly where the cortex is located on a plant root. Root rots are best managed by manipulating the environment. So that means basically improving soil drainage and avoiding or reducing overwatering. Now on the left side of the screen, I talk about biological fungicides. They're actually what we call hyperparasites, and they can reduce the harmful root rot organisms, but they have to be applied preventively, or they have to be applied in a very light infestation because they're not rescue treatments. If a plant's really in bad shape, it's best to throw it out and start all over and pay attention to soil drainage and watering. So now let's summarize fungal disease management. And in most cases, it's best for gardeners to manage fungal diseases using good cultural practices. So that means planting, thinning, and pruning appropriately. You want to promote good air circulation around the plant to keep the leaves dry, and keeping in mind that many plant diseases need moisture to grow, to develop, and to spread. You want to try to avoid overhead watering, or at least try to keep water out of plant canopies to help keep them drier. And then in the fall or winter months, clean up the plant debris, because those fungal fruiting structures can overwinter on dead plant material. So the bead-like structures that you see in the picture on the right-hand side are the overwintering fruiting structures of powdery mildew. And a number of them will survive to begin the cycle next year on those brand new tender succulent leaves. This is the end of Module 2B, and in Module 3, we'll take a look at bacterial disease.